Hello, everyone. I'm happy you're attending the second slot. I would like to tell you a bit about how we brought Telium CDP to the heart of our MarTech setup. Let me introduce myself. I'm Florian Schlüter. I'm product owner, customer data platform at STIHL for the last 5 years now. And I've been working for online-focused companies since I finished my studies well over 10 years ago. And thereof the last 9 years together with Telium already. So I guess I have a bit of experience. As an introduction, I would like to tell you about how it took STIHL nearly 100 years to become from a dealer-only company to a direct-to-customer or direct-to-consumer company. We are celebrating our 100 years this year, so we're very proud and happy about that. And we were founded in 1926, and also our founder, Andreas Stihl, invented the first electric chainsaw in this year, which is considered to be the invention of the modern chainsaw nowadays. 4 years later, he also invented the first petrol chainsaw, which is maybe what we're most known for. You can consider this to be the first wireless chainsaw, basically. 40 years later, in 1971, and until today, which makes us very proud, we're the world's most sold chainsaw brand. So that's maybe what most people do know STIHL for, but still we're also selling well above 1,000 other products, enabling our consumer and professional customers working in the nature. So this is why this is also part of our claim for the 100-year celebrations, Built for Nature. In 2020, our products were sold in 160 plus countries by well above 5,500 dealers, and these were managed by 40 plus subsidiaries. In the same year, in March, we started our own B2C online shop. So you can see it almost took us 100 years to become a direct-to-consumer company. And only 1 year later, in May of 2021, we already implemented our CDP or started the development, which shows how important customer data is to STIHL and how important we take this also in the future. In 2024, we made a 5.3 billion euros of revenue. We have around 20,000 employees worldwide, and we are manufacturing in 8 countries. So let me tell you a bit about our marketing automation setup and how the vision versus the reality looks like, because the honest reality is in between. Before the CDP, we had a system of scattered tools. We used a legacy A/B testing tool, also legacy email marketing, because we came from a B2B environment, now facing a B2C environment with different requirements. We had no unified data activation, which means we weren't able to utilize offline and online data to power or retargeting, for example. You can imagine seeing on the last slide 5,500 and more dealers that are selling our products offline were not connected to our online marketing, so it was very hard to identify any sales that took place. Also, we couldn't use our online or offline data for website and email personalization, and we had no omni-channel intelligence, which means we couldn't do real product recommendations or advanced analytics use cases. That's where the vision is coming from. So it's based on a general framework of 4 points: flexibility, frequency, security, and scalability. You saw 40 plus subsidiaries. They all want to be able to work with the tool in the future. And Telium as the orchestration layer is in the center or in the heart of the setup, connected to modern tools that are able to utilize the data and keep track with our new requirements in terms of B2C. The honest reality lies between. Maybe you think there haven't been too many changes, but there are some compared to the vision. Maybe you can see in the lower end that we don't have a marketing journey tool anymore in here. That's based on our limited budget in the last years, where we didn't simply get the allowance to implement new tools that are expensive. Limited workforce capacities is also a topic that restrained us because we didn't simply have enough workforce to implement all of the tools or to build all the connections that we wanted to have. And lastly, limited technical features of existing tools that we were connecting. So always a good example is our CRM system. So we wanted to connect with them. And during the exploration, we found out they are not able to only send increments of data, but they would always send full customer profiles with each connection or with each synchronization. Obviously, that's not what we wanted. Maybe that's a bit wrong on the slide, but nowadays we are receiving the data from the analytics platform, which also has a connection and is able to provide that. So you can see we will always find another way to connect data. Talking about challenges and restraints, it always can be frustrating because you think you're running against walls and you're not at the point you want to be at. But looking at this, it actually makes me proud of what we already achieved together with Telium. We still have a very functional system with features well above of what we were able to do before. And a big part of what we want to do is already done, and I'm looking forward to also achieve the rest. So how did we position the CDP in the center of our MarTech stack, and how were we able to come from scattered systems to one orchestration backbone? Actually, we have 3 strategic challenges. Thinking about Marcin's presentation, strategy is only for amateurs, but so maybe we need to consider ourselves as amateurs. But still, we have these 3. So the marketing automation strategy is the first one. That's where I'm located in the marketing automation team. Our challenge or our strategy is to build use cases as fast as possible, as automated as possible, get them on the road, roll them out. The second part are the subsidiary strategies. So these are all our sales units. Most countries have their own sales unit. They are grown structures, sometimes older than 40 years. For example, the subsidiary in the US was founded in 1974. So you can imagine they don't want any changes. They want autonomy, and especially they don't want any additional effort that's coming from us because they also have limited workforce capacities. And the last strategy is the headquarters strategy, where all the internal stakeholders are located, so also the marketing automation team itself, which also includes paid media or email marketing. And they, of course, want a global setup. They want a high compliance. And you can see, you don't see many similarities between these 3, but there's one thing that helps to get them all together, and that is revenue. They all want to maximize their revenue, and that's their #1 goal. So helping you to bring the tool to the countries or to the subsidiaries is always to make revenue your #1 KPI for all of your use cases. I would like to talk a bit about push to pull. So when we started, we tried to push our use cases, the CDP, the tool, to the subsidiaries, to all the other stakeholders. We tried to convince them. But you don't sell technology by PowerPoint, you sell it by value. So you need to develop use cases that generate demand. As I said, the challenge, push doesn't scale. If you don't have value behind your tool, the subsidiaries wouldn't understand it, they won't adopt it, and they won't be very happy about it. So what we did, we were working on one major use case that could help us to show the value of the CDP and to provide it to all the subsidiaries and to convince them to make the scale over to a pull approach. This trigger use case was in our case the cart abandonment use case. I'm pretty sure every one of you knows the cart abandonment. Maybe every one of you has already implemented it, hopefully, because it's very valuable. But it's a very good use case for that because it's easy to understand, it shows clear impact, and it's very easy to roll out. So you can bring it to all the countries very quick. With this clear revenue impact that we had from our subsidiary Germany, this one was very motivated to work with us with the CDP. Also, it is one of our biggest markets, so you can imagine you will have a very big revenue impact. In our case, it was almost, it was enough to pay Telium's license cost alone, so you can imagine this was a very successful use case for us. And with this use case, we went out to all the others. So we consider ourselves to be a Microsoft company by the IT department, so I have to use Copilot, I know, but Copilot would have said as the next slide, other subsidiaries asked for it to shift from push to pull, and here the story would end. But I can tell you it wasn't that easy. So even having this very successful use case in our hand and all the numbers that we could show to the other subsidiaries, we still needed to do a lot of communication, telling them about CDP at all, about the use case, about the value. And this took some time, and you still need to be resilient to talk to everyone again and again until they really understand and the pull effect starts. So that's where the flywheel effect starts. And basically that's when all the other subsidiaries saw the great value, they saw how it's helpful to them and how valuable their data really can be. With this in our backend, the CDP really become the backbone of our MarTech strategy. And we came from a bottom-down to, bottom-up demand that replaces now the top-down push. So the subsidiaries are now actively asking to get a CDP, and we have to manage the requests. Let me end my presentation with one other quote. I think it's clear to say you don't scale a CDP by pushing technology, you scale it by delivering value and make people or subsidiaries actively ask for it. Thank you.
So I've got a couple of questions about how the process goes, and this is my QBR really, but we'll see. So you talked a lot about pulling all the different data into a centralized system from all these different data sources. So my first question is about the data schema and how do you go about it? How have you designed the data schema? Have you designed the data structure? And how was that process really?
Yeah, actually it's an ongoing process because when you're beginning working with the CDP, you're not quite sure where you're going to end, what data you will need in the future, or what the use cases will be that come across your way. So in the beginning, we were mainly focusing on the website data that we had and also on the data that we were planning to connect in the near future. And then in the years following, so as I said, we're working for 5 years at STIHL now with Telium, we were adding multiple data points, overthinking sometimes attributes that weren't used as they were thought in the beginning. And so it's an ongoing process, and it's always in movement, I would say.
Yeah. And is that everything documented already?
Yeah, that's a good question. So obviously, as we said, we have the second track. Yeah. So I had some time to think about it again. Yeah, in the beginning, you get the documentation by Telium, but this was never really utilized on our side. So we made the documentation clear in the tool itself. And also I'm thinking about making our own documentation that's a bit more widely available to colleagues or stakeholders in the company that maybe not directly work in the CDP to get their ideation process ongoing. But one tip I can give you with this one is to always use the notes to really describe what an attribute will store and what data is in the CDP, because it makes it way easier, even for yourself, to work with stuff that you maybe created 1 or 2 years ago.
Yeah. So maybe a quick question for you guys. How many of you have got like a data dictionary implemented in your organization? But by a show of hands, one. Oh my days, we've got loads of work to do. Talk to me afterwards, okay? There's gonna be loads of work. Awesome. Is there any questions from the audience? Any questions? Okay, let me continue with my questions. I've got plenty. So what would be the logistics of managing those different data sources? Let's say from different teams, different subsidiaries. And, you know, I can imagine, you know, 100 years of company. You've collected tons of data, all in different schema and all that stuff. How would you logistically approach that subject?
Yeah, first of all, you need to find the right contact partners, obviously. That can be hard sometimes because, especially in big companies, one person will lead you to another. And so, don't know how many of you know Asterix and Obelix, but it's a comic, and there is this little paper, and they are running from place A to place B. So it can feel like this sometimes. But as soon as you found the right contact person, you will definitely it will definitely help you to already have a use case in hand to make clear why you really need that data and what it brings for the company to get their alignment with you and to really make them support you with the implementation. Okay. And the managing itself, at least we're in a lucky position that we have a centrally managed e-commerce rollout. So basically all the data sources are available for all the e-commerce countries. And if you're connecting one, you can also connect the others.
And have you used any AI or machine learning to differentiate between different data sources and standardize that dictionary?
Yeah, as I said, we're a Microsoft company. We have Copilot. It's not really able, I think, to help with that. Even though I know that there are many teams in our company that are already working with AI and also some of them with data, but we're not using it currently to streamline the data. It's more of creating new data, for example. Okay. What I used AI for is to get a good picture of what attributes I do need, how the naming convention could be, how the time frames of each attribute could be, especially for timelines. And this helped very much already.
Okay. And are you pulling in some of the AI models or the results of those AI models or machine learning models already into the CDP for any purpose?
So right now we don't, because we decided to implement them directly in some of the touchpoints they have, which made more sense at that point. But we will definitely do that in the future, yes.
Okay, perfect. Any questions? Yes, there's one question.
Can I just ask it?
Yeah, we've got a microphone, yes.
Hi, thank you for your talk. I was just wondering, we also see often CDP implementations fail at organizations. And of course, we always want a successful one. So I was wondering if you can share your biggest learning from the CDP implementation.
Well, there were a lot, and it's hard to give you the best one. But I think one of the learnings, because we made through some iterations and also of the attributes and stuff like that, is always trying to think as big as you can from the beginning on, but still start with little increments. So maybe it's hard to combine, but think of what could be the highest point you could reach, but still don't try to reach it from the beginning on. Start with small increments, implementing the website and website data, which is basically the easiest part for most companies, I guess. and then think about what would be the next most important thing to have in the CDP and to utilize the data, and then start with this one. And don't try to connect everything at the same time, because that won't work, and yeah, it will be confusing for you, for the colleagues, and I think no one will be happy at the end.
That's very valuable advice, especially during some of the workshops that we do, or that we conduct with customers. We focus on this anatomy of the use case, where we break it down into those implementable chunks, as opposed to one big project that is going to take 18 months. We know from all other different stories that that barely works or ever works. So we just want to focus on something that we can deliver very quickly, show the progress, show the value, and then deliver the next part of it, version 2, 3, 5, and so on. So we're going to talk about this in maybe just a second, but that's a good segue to working with your team. How did you find exactly who to talk to different teams when dealing with them?
Yeah, when implementing the CDP, you really have a central position, I'd say. You see it's in the heart of our MarTech setup. And as I said, it can be very hard to find the right contact persons, but you need to really connect to as many people as possible, especially in the data surrounding of your company. And if you don't find the right person, always you will have a manager or maybe someone you know that has been in the company for longer. And I think this is very helpful to talk to these people, ask them if they know someone you could talk to. And as I said, sometimes you're running from A to B to C to D with your little paper, but that's the way to go. And in the end, you will find the right person.
Any questions from the audience? Any more questions? Okay, so my question from me. So how do you want to maintain this momentum of that pull mentality within your teams? What would be the next steps?
Yeah, so one of the next steps will be a workshop that we have together with you, obviously, where we want to develop new use cases, talk about new data sources we need to connect. And out of that, what we are already doing is as soon as we take a use case live and we have some data on it, and if it's successful, we have regular meetings with marketing automation stakeholders from all of the subsidiaries, and we are presenting it there. So to show them how other countries were successful with the CDP and to make them also actively ask for it.
Okay, perfect. And the last question, unless there's any question from the audience? I don't see any hands. Okay, my last question is how, you talked about this basket abandonment use case, which is primary use case that everyone wants to implement using CDP. And you also mentioned that you had to show the value first, and it was quite easy to measure. What advice would you give in terms of that measurement, how to portray that value and sell that use case to different teams?
Yeah, actually, you only need to look at your conversion rate on the website, and I'm sure no one of you has 100% conversion rate. So you will always have abandoned carts, may it be selling some real product or some service. So this is always a good starting point. And in the end, of course, you really have to take care of the tracking of these emails or SMS or WhatsApp, whatever you will use to send out these cart abandonment mails or messages. And in the end, yeah, you will definitely see the revenue that's directly correlated to the messages, and that should always be a really good part.
Yeah. Perfect, thank you. And I think this is not the last time we're going to hear about the abandonment use case, simply because we're going to be evolving it as we progress. So hopefully it's going to be a great work.